All right, ANP1 students, we're going to talk about the objective number 9 on this video. We're going to compare the functions of the organ systems of the human body. All right, I'm going to go to our textbook. And remember the organ systems, that is one of the most complex levels of organization of the human body. It contains multiple organs that are working together for a common function or a specific function. And when we put all the organ systems together, we get the organism, which is, of course, in this case, the human body. So we want to talk about the different organ systems and have you just generally get an idea of what their overall function is. So it's just kind of an overview of what their functions are. Now, the lab portion will also cover the parts of each of the organ systems. So more like what parts are, which organs are part of which organ systems, more the anatomy part. And you will be able to You also in lab be able to identify a lot of these organs on our torso models. So you'll be able to do that as well. So, but in lecture, we kind of just focus on asking any questions about the functions. So I'm gonna slide up here. And the first organ system, now we're going to talk the first few weeks, first test, and a little bit of the second test. We're going to focus more on the basics that you need to know to understand anatomy and physiology. So we won't get to talking about a specific organ system. I think it's chapter 6, I believe. So we will get there, and then we'll learn more specific details about each of these organ systems. But realize we have to kind of have this basic knowledge and understanding before we can, dive into the more complex concepts about the organ systems. Okay, so in ANP1, the first semester of ANP1, we're going to talk about 4 different organ systems. So the first one's the integumentary system, and I'll see if I can make this a little bigger. Yeah. Is the integumentary system. So, and this is probably, some of these will be like ones that you won't have to really study. You'll probably know what their functions are. So the integumentary system, and this is, let me see what page, probably about page 10 in your textbook. This is where you can find this information. So these are all in here. So the integumentary system, protection is a big thing. Also, it's got a lot of sweat glands, so it helps regulate body temperature. A lot of or sensory receptors, parts of the nervous system in there, so it helps to respond to different environmental changes. Makes vitamin D, prevents water loss, kind of keeps our fluid in our body too. So those are functions of the integumentary system. So that'll be the first organ system we talk about in ANP1. And then the next one is the skeletal system. And this is going to, and again, probably makes sense, support. It's going to support the body and protect. Another function that you may not be familiar with yet is that it's the site of, it's called hemopoiesis, but that just means blood cell production. So inside our bone marrow is where our blood cells are made, like our red blood cells and our white blood cells and our platelets. Also a place where calcium is stored until the body needs it, and some phosphorus. And then it's where ligaments and things and muscles will attach to, so that we can have movement as well. So that's the skeletal system. And then the next one is the muscular system. And the muscular system, probably not too hard to know this one, provides movement of the body. One thing that you may not be familiar with is when we have those chemical reactions going on in our skeletal muscles, and we get that movement, a byproduct of that movement is heat. Those chemical reactions that are going on, heat is a byproduct of that. And so the contraction of our skeletal muscles produces heat. And that's one of the main things that helps keep our body temperature where it needs to be. So that's why when we get cold, we shiver. That's contractions of your skeletal muscles. They're contracting to produce more heat, can help keep your body temperature, get your body temperature back up. So, all right, so that's the muscular system. And then the nervous system, And then the nervous system, kind of mentioned before, it's mainly communication, brain, spinal cord, and nerves. So it's going to, and it does a lot of regulating. There's kind of two main systems that are really involved in regulating, kind of orchestrating all the processes that are going on. So the nervous system is one of those. So it controls the muscles of the body. So muscles aren't going to contract unless the nervous system tells them to. Glands of the body, they won't secrete, saliva or hormones or anything unless the nervous system tells them to. It's providing our sensations. So not only our special senses, but also our general senses too. And so it'll be sending that information to the brain and spinal cord and decide what needs to be done. And so it's a big controller. We a lot of times call it especially the brain, the control center of the body. All right, so those are the 4 body systems, organ systems, I should say, that we'll cover in A&P 1 in a lot more detail. So this, again, is just an overview. All right, the other systems, we'll get started on them when we get to A&P 2, the second semester of anatomy and physiology. So these are the endocrine system. And the endocrine system is made up of the glands, certain glands in the body that produce hormones. And hormones are commonly called chemical messengers. They are released into the blood from the gland, and then they can travel in the blood to other parts of the body and tell other parts of the body, to do something. So they kind of work similar to the nervous system as far as they're regulating things, but they just do it a different way. They do it through hormones rather than through nerve impulses. So, all right, so the endocrine system, glands, clusters of cells that secrete hormones, and they are going to maintain homeostasis. That's a term we haven't yet talked about, but we will soon. That's just the regulation part, keeping things in like your body temperature and blood pressure and heart rate and everything in the normal range. And controls digestive processes, reproductive functions, all kinds of, so big regulatory system, just like the nervous system. But again, it does it through hormones. All right, and the next one's the cardiovascular system. So that's the heart and the blood vessels and the blood that's in them. And the main function is to move the blood through the heart and the blood vessels, and that way it can get to all the different cells of the body. And so things can get, like hormones can get there, oxygen can get there, nutrients can get there, and then any waste products can be taken away from those areas too. So big distributing system, distributing all the necessary components that the cells need to them and away from them too, stuff they don't need, like waste products. And then the lymphatic system, this is one that isn't as well known, it seems like. So it's, and it kind of, I think they put it in the same chapter too. The immune system kind of goes along with the immune system too. But this is the system that contains like your lymph nodes and your tonsils. Those structures are part of the lymphatic system, and they kind of have 2 functions. Since they kind of work along with the immune system, they do help to help fight, the body fight infections, which makes sense. Your lymph nodes will get swollen if you have like an infection. So they do help with that. But one of the other roles that people may not be as familiar with is they do like take any fluid that gets out of the blood whenever hormones, nutrients, and stuff and oxygen are get out of the blood to go to the tissue cells. Any of that fluid that doesn't get back into the blood, it gets into the lymphatic vessels. That's what all these little green lines are, the lymphatic vessels, and then they'll take that lymph back to they call it lymph when it's in the lymphatic vessels, take it back towards the heart, and then that way it can get back into the bloodstream. So if you don't have those lymphatic vessels working very well, you start getting swelling in certain parts of your body. So that's the function of the lymphatic system, is to transport fluid back to the blood, and then it can help with the immune system. It's the site where white blood cells will fight off bacteria or viruses or things like that. All right, and then the next system is the respiratory system, and it's responsible for the exchange of gases. We talked about, we looked at those slides of the lung tissue. So we get exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen across the wall of the air sacs or alveoli. So that's the main function of the respiratory system, is to move those gases between the blood and the lungs, air sacs and the lungs. All right, and then the next system is our urinary system. So kidneys, ureters, and bladder, and people are probably familiar with this one. The kidneys filter the blood, and then any waste products can go into the urine, and then anything the body needs, stays in the blood. So it helps to clean the blood or filter the blood. So that way waste products, stuff that could harm us, doesn't get built up in the body. And we'll talk again more detail about all the functions of the urinary system. And then the digestive system, everybody's probably familiar with that one. So it's going to physically or mechanically break down foods and also chemically do it with enzymes. And then we'll get the nutrients absorbed, which just means they move from the small intestines into the blood. And then, of course, anything that we eat, products in the food that we eat that we don't need, go out, get expelled. So that's the digestive system. And then the last system, they break it down into male reproductive and female reproductive. And you guys probably are very familiar with what those do. So producing the sex cells and the male hormones, and then the females, of course, they are a little more involved because they not only produce the sex cells and hormones, but they also have to, conceive and nourish the embryo and fetus through pregnancy, and then also produce milk and stuff. So a little more role for the female in reproduction. So okay, so those are our body systems. So we finished the number 9 objective. So compare the functions of the organ systems of the human body. All right, I will see you in the next video.